Podcast for Thursday, December 22nd, 2022. Happy holidays. I am Aaron Schatz, editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, joined as always by Mike Tanier. And we are joined this week by, nice little can opening there. And we are joined this week by our film guru, Derrik Klassen, to ask him about a couple of interesting teams because our Week 16 preview features a number of interesting teams where the numbers in the film agree or don't agree, or we're just kind of wondering from the film how we got to the numbers that we're at. But before we get into those games, I've got these two guys here, and we need to talk about their preseason Matt Ryan, Pittsburgh versus Indianapolis bet. Take it away, Mike.
It was Pittsburgh versus Indianapolis, and it was League of Legends versus She-Hulk. Okay, if we remember the terms of the bet. And the idea was that the team with the better record, I picked the Steelers, and Derek picked the Colts, that the team with the better record, that person wins the bet and makes the other person watch something that they have no interest whatsoever in watching. I'll be forced to watch some video game stuff, and Derek will watch the most beloved of the Marvel franchises, especially now that it's completed and it's extra beloved. Well, lo and behold, I believe I have a 1.5 game lead in this bet with 3 games left to play, and the Colts are flatlining. Meanwhile, the Steelers are about to go out and possibly run through walls. Rest in peace, Franco Harris. I'm not tying Franco Harris's demise to my bet, but it looks like I have won this bet. Derek, your thoughts?
I gravely misunderstood a lot of things about the Colts, I think, is what happened. Because the Steelers are kind of exactly what I thought they were, in the sense of like, win, I don't know, 7 to 8 games, maybe 9 if Kenny Pickett is better than I thought. But I was betting on the fact that the Colts would be able to win a fairly weak AFC South. I didn't think the Jaguars would be as good as they are at this point. I thought the Titans would still be fairly good, and they kind of have been. Injuries have killed them, but but I thought the Colts could have been better than them, and then the Texans are. I mean, we don't really need to talk about that. But I think I gravely underestimated how bad the offensive line was going to be, and how bad another year of deterioration for Matt Ryan would be, because I think he looks a lot worse than he did even last year. So I think the factor of those two things, and then you end up firing Frank Reich, is just like, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go.
You and Chris Ballard both, and I think everybody in the building as well for the Colts. It's like, I think we started this because I was like, dude, Matt Ryan is washed. I was kind of needling you on Matt Ryan being washed. I had no idea it was going to turn into this kind of crap show.
Yeah, I thought Matt Ryan washed was going to be like quarterback 16, which is enough for Frank Reich with decent skill players to like have a good offense. And I thought the defense was talented enough that they would make players. Matt Ryan was like quarterback 29. So
we knew the offensive line was going to have issues like left tackle, but I think it's been a lot worse than anybody expected. Also,
it's been even worse. I think in particular, Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly have just not been the players that they're used to. Quentin Nelson somehow still got a Pro Bowl nod. He's not that level of player right now. He's about average, I think, and Kelly, I think, has been not up to his level either. And then the tackles, both tackle situations, really, they've been flip-flopping at both spots for most of the year. So a below average offensive line is what I thought I was getting. Right. I got like a bottom 5 offensive line.
And you've also been stuck for the last 4 weeks. Remember, it wasn't just Reich, but the offensive coordinator that gets fired. So there's no coordinator. There's, a guy from a football card signing show running the team, and you're stuck with that. On the other side, I expected Mitch Trubisky to come in and provide semi-competence, and he was complete garbage by about week 2 or week 3 and was just out the door. Pickett came in and was
but somehow better.
Somehow better until I guess last week. Trubisky played okay last week, but that was we'll talk about that game, I think. But like my whole goal for this was to drag you down to my level. And like drag you down to hell.
You and Chris Ballard have succeeded in doing that.
And all I have to tell you is we'll bring you on during the draft show. I'll give you if assuming I win, I'm counting my winnings now. You watch She-Hulk. I'll need to know your thoughts on the controversial ending of the show. And good luck.
I liked She-Hulk, by the way. I haven't watched the last episode yet, but I like the episodes I've watched so far.
It goes from corny dad jokey to funny dad jokey to a place at the end, and which I like, but like, I'm not going to spoil. But you're going to sit through this like very corny dad jokey stuff. Assuming I win, you can win out, and I'll be watching a League of Legends tournament.
Not with Nick Foles, I don't think.
Not with Nick Foles. And at this point, like I can almost understand the benching for Ellinger earlier in the season. I don't really think I understand it, but I get it. I think Frank Reich was trying to get fired at that point. There's no logic to this benching right now. This is just the humiliation of a.
Yeah, like what are we?
At least Ellinger, you could say, let's find out what we have here. With Nick Foles, there's none of that. We know what we have here.
And he doesn't do anything that Matt Ryan, like he doesn't do anything different from Matt Ryan. You're going to run the same offense generally. Where at least like Ellinger was like, yeah, you're going to do something different. Let's see defenses have to plan different.
That's not good.
Todd Singer's right. There's bad CGI in She-Hulk. And when Orphan Black is running around, I don't know the actress's name, Tatiana
Maslany.
She's amazing. And then there's another actress comes in I think it's another actress in the makeup, and the CGI doesn't look as. Anyway, you'll say.
All right, let's get to the games because as long as we're in the AFC South, I do want to remind people if you are watching live, please bring on comments like Todd Singer has already. You can comment through YouTube or Twitch. And if you are listening to this as a podcast, please be here live Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, so you can ask us questions live. Let's talk about the AFC South champion to be Jacksonville Jaguars. So our first game of importance is tonight, Jaguars at Jets. The Jaguars make the playoffs 61% of the time with a win and 35% with a loss. But that was based on previous simulation. I did a new simulation this morning that makes the Jaguars now the favorites in the AFC South because of the Ryan Tannehill injury.
Right.
Because Malik Willis will play this week, and it is very likely that Malik Willis will play the next 2 weeks as well. The Jets, by the way, make the playoffs in 34% of sims where they win and 8% where they lose. So the Jets and Patriots are definitely taking a back seat to the Los Angeles Chargers now for that 7th spot in the AFC. So we wanted to talk about this game so that Derrik could rhapsodic about the wonders of Trevor Lawrence, who has fully matured into the player that we thought he was going to be.
Listen, it's very, very nice that I got to say, hey, the generational quarterback prospect that we all thought was really good for 5 years and ended up the number 1 overall pick. He's going to be good. It's pretty cool. I got to say that and just be right. That's a very easy take to have. And I got to have it.
Remember the quarterback tiers show in the preseason when we were like even I, as a Patriots fan, was like, at this, like Mac Jones was better than Trevor Lawrence last year. But if you would take Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence at this point, you're crazy.
Right, because if you had thrown Trevor into that, offense, it would have into the Patriots offense last year when it was competent. He would have looked a lot better than Mac Jones has. Trevor, man, he just. So I think last year, a lot of what we saw was like you could see his pocket presence is. I think already when he got into the league was already some of the best in the league. And I think the way that he was trying to process and like get to intermediate throws is really what drew me to him. Like. His work in the 10 to 20 yard area, digs, seam benders, over routes, like corner routes, all that stuff. That is where he really shined. It's just as a rookie, one, that was like had some general rookie inconsistency to it. But then two, his short game wasn't very good and his deep game wasn't very good as a rookie. I think there was just a lot of clunkiness there. This year, I think we've really seen him take a step in both of those. Like his quick game, even just like on a lot of the cheap RPO stuff that they do, how fast he gets the ball out for a dude who is 6'6" is bonkers. Like he's as fast as anybody not named Tua Tagovailoa, which I think is insanely impressive. And then I think his work in, I wrote this in a film room 2-3 weeks ago, but you can just see in the way that he's working the quick game, like he's timing his footwork in a way that makes it to where he can get to every single throw seamlessly. You don't see that from second-year quarterbacks, man. Like, that's really, really hard. You see that from guys like Dak and Brady. Like, those are the types of guys you see that stuff from. And Trevor is already there, which I think with his arm strength, like it just kind of unlocks everything for him in the short game. And then the deep game, we've seen, I think with, getting some guys like Christian Kirk in there, Zay Jones has been a decent deep threat, like getting a little bit more speed for him to actually uncork it down the field. He actually can unlock that part of the part of his game too. So like we've just kind of seen him go from this guy who is an interesting intermediate thrower to like he can literally make every throw on the field, and he has the best pocket presence that I've seen out of a young player in a long time. So it's just he just does it all, man. He's an awesome player.
Compare and contrast Trevor Lawrence with Zach Wilson.
I don't think Zach Wilson does anything a quarter of as good as Trevor Lawrence does, and I don't think that he ever did. I think that's the thing that I don't understand is that even if you were optimistic about Zach Wilson, I don't understand what he ever did that was better than Trevor. Maybe he was a little bit more creative out of the pocket at times, but like I think we've seen even over the past month, Trevor is pretty good at that too now. Like I don't know.
I mean, there's a reason why Trevor Lawrence went 1 and Zach Wilson went 2.
Yeah,
exactly.
But there's a reason why this is a game, which is that the Jets defense is much, much better than the Jaguars defense. Yeah. The Jaguars are now last in pass defense DVOA, and the Jets are 6th in defense overall and have the strong cornerback. So that makes that an interesting game because of strength against strength and weakness against weakness.
I'm a lot more worried about the cornerback versus receiver thing than the pass rush versus Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars offensive line is like okay, and they just lost Cam Robinson, which I think could be a little bit of a problem depending on how Walker Little plays. I think it's going to be, it would be his first start this year versus a really, really good pass rush, a really good 4-man pass rush. But like I said, I think Trevor has incredible pocket presence and really good timing. So he kind of just avoids that more than your typical quarterback is going to. I'm worried about how much these receivers can separate. I think Doug Peterson does an awesome job of scheming stuff up, but like at the end of the day, it's kind of a talent thing. And I just don't think that Jaguars have the receiver talent on the outside to really separate from guys like Sauce and DJ Reed. Like they just, I don't think they're going to be able to separate. And I don't think any of them are very good, like contested catch guys. Like Marvin Jones, I think has been better this year than he was even actually earlier this season or especially last season, but he's not T Higgins. You know what I mean? Like he's not a guy who you just throw it up to all the time and he's going to go get it. So I'm really just worried about like how consistently they're going to be able to get guys open, but I don't know. Doug has had something for the past 6 weeks, so maybe he has something this week.
Walker Little's that kid out of Stanford that right. He had injuries all through his college career, right?
Yeah, super talented, like high recruit, just could not stay on the field to save his life. But I think he's been healthier since he's been in the NFL. So
right. He played pretty well last week in difficult circumstances. I think he had to play both sides during that game because I think Taylor was out for a while as well. By the way, I just want to point this out. You just mentioned that the Jaguars are now our favorites, right, Aaron?
Our favorites to win that division, yes.
Win the division. And I ran to Vegas, and the Jaguars are getting -145 to win the division at Vegas. Titans +115. So, again, we're sitting there with the market. I thought I was going to jump on something there.
No, I think the market understands who Malik Willis is also.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting stat, by the way, about what Zach Wilson might be able to do against the Jaguars. This is the SIS yards per target numbers. Okay. Tyson Campbell, who's having a Pro Bowl level season. I don't know if he made the Pro Bowl or not, but
I don't think he did.
5.3 yards per target. Darius Williams, 6.6. Trey Herndon, 12. So, Zach, if you're wondering where to look on the field, I'm going to suggest you see who's being covered by Trey Herndon. Also, the Jaguars are 31st against tight ends, so this might be a good Conklin and Uzuma game for the Jets.
Yeah, the Jags, I mean, you just mentioned how bad their cornerbacks, outside of Campbell, have been. Their linebackers. Devin Lloyd was a really good coverage player for like the first month. He cannot play right now. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know if he hit like some weird rookie wall and is overthinking. Or
they're using more of Muma instead of him.
They've gone back to Lloyd now the past couple of weeks, but there was like a 3-4 week stretch there where Muma was getting more of the playing time. Yeah.
Lloyd was kind of a runaround guy.
Yeah, and always the wrong direction.
Always going the wrong direction, right? And I think that's kind of their back seven. I look at it, it's like they're just run around guys. There's just too many of those out there. So, and that's something that you can scheme up against. And like the whole thing with Zach Wilson is you better scheme up the perfect opportunity for him to the wide open target that he knows is his first read. And if Jets manage to do that, this is going to be an interesting game.
The current line is Jets by 1.5. It is
Really?
in the Meadowlands.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
It's raining. It's going to be raining all night.
Yeah, so this is interesting. There's going to be rain and crosswinds, but our over-under formula is very heavy on the over. The over-under is 37.5. Because we, first of all, it's not going to be cold. It's going to be like 45 degrees tonight.
Yes.
And the crosswinds are not going to be too heavy. Like the over-under formula only really takes the wind into account when you get over 20 miles an hour, which is the case in a couple of games this week, but not this game. So it's interesting. Our over-under formula is very heavy on the over 37.5.
Do it. Zach Wilson in the rain and wind, that's turnovers. Trevor will fumble sometimes.
He will do that a little bit. He runs a little recklessly.
He runs recklessly with the ball in his hand. Eagles took care of that. Almost had a problem last week. Go over on this. I'm leaning Jaguars in this.
I'm leaning Jaguars too.
Yeah.
I feel like their offense is more trustworthy than the Jets defense, as good as the Jets defense has been this year.
For me, it's just, I think it could be an ugly game. I do not trust Zach Wilson in the conditions at all.
Right.
Like 0%. Because the thing like with Zach Wilson is coming out of college, one of his biggest billings was arm strength. But like the way that he throws now, he kind of throws like he's just playing pitch and catch at the park. Like he doesn't drive on anything. And so if he's not going to be driving and now he's in the conditions, I don't see how he throws very many accurate passes this game unless they're all 2 yards from the line of scrimmage. And even then, I think we've seen he's a little, shaky.
Yeah, he needs that big margin for error. The guy's wide open or it's 1-on-1. And like last week, Wilson made this big catch for him because his footwork is weird and it's just loft sail balls.
Yep.
Sail balls in the wind at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, good luck.
Oh, maybe that's an argument for the under rather than the over.
Yeah, I think they might sail directly to Herndon or somebody.
All right, and you had a prop you liked, Mike.
I want to talk about it, not so much I love it, just want to bring it up for the room. Travis Etienne, 100-plus rushing yards. Trevor Lawrence, 2 passing touchdowns at plus 600. And the thing that's keeping me away from it right now is kind of the weather. But I think in a clear day, if this game was in Jacksonville, I think Etienne could pass the 100-yard mark. And I think that even against this defense, Lawrence could pull the 2 touchdowns.
I'll take it. Why not?
Plus 600 is a nice payout.
All right. Well,
I think Zach Wilson probably gives them enough chances, the Jaguars offense enough chances that they can probably. I mean, not probably, but I kind of like it.
I feel like the Lawrence 2 touchdowns is more likely than the Etienne 100 yards. I mean, even though if they're going to want to run a lot, if it's windy and rainy.
Yeah, the Jets' run defense is like pretty solid.
It's tough, and he winds up getting yards on swing passes and all. But you guys have talked me into it. I'm playing it in your honor. So,
Todd Singer wants to know if you have any thoughts about Wilson going forward because he's a fantasy keeper league owner.
I don't think he's going to have a starting job ever again. I don't see why he should.
Do you think he'll replace him by next year?
I think absolutely. I think they will draft a quarterback 100%, or trade for Carr or Jimmy or something or another.
Everybody has Jimmy Garoppolo in New York.
It makes too much sense.
So much sense. Oh, I meant Garrett. Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. I mean, if they get Jimmy Garoppolo or something, I would feel great. Yeah, exactly.
Whoop. Oh, yes, keep him. Yes. Oh no, he's really good. Garrett Wilson's really good.
Garrett Wilson is very good.
Yeah. Keep him.
All right, second game of the week. This is the game with the most playoff implications, which is kind of nuts. Lions at Panthers. Lions playoffs, 55% with a win, 16% with a loss. Panthers, 22% with a win, 7% with a loss. So, Derrik, I want your thoughts. How much Lions have you watched, and what is your thoughts about how they've schemed it up for Goff? Because Goff has been unbelievably productive this year. The dude is number 2 in passing DYAR behind Mahomes, which is not a statement that he's the second best quarterback in the league, but it is a statement that he's pretty darn productive.
The Lions, I mean, it's a lot of things, and actually credit to Goff on some level. I'll start with that. Like, I actually do think his pre-snap understanding and some of his operation in the quick game is better than it was with the Rams, because I think when he was with the Rams, like, unless they went to empty and fully spread it out, he just could not like throw a quick game gun. Like, that's just not what he did. He was kind of like too long levered. He just didn't see it well enough. It just wasn't really part of their offense, so they didn't do it very much. I think he's gotten a lot better at that with the Lions, which kind of raises the floor for the offense a little bit. I think I even saw a stat that they have like the fewest 3 and outs or something, which is partly him being able to do that, and then obviously them being able to run the ball. I think another pillar of it is, I mean, they might have the second best offensive line in the league, which I think even going back to Goff's Rams days, like, that was really what the engine for Goff was. I think it wasn't necessarily the scheme, it wasn't necessarily the skill players, it was that he had more room and time in the pocket than anybody else. And I think he's pretty bad when you get condensed pockets and he has to either move out of the pocket or, move in tight pockets and throw with bodies around him. He's not very good at that, but he just doesn't have to do that very often. When you're playing behind, Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow is playing well. Jonah Jackson is turning into one of the best guards in the NFL. So I think that has helped them a lot. And then I think what they do in terms of passing concepts is, one, I think they generally do a very good job of like understanding when to call a lot of their man and zone beaters. And I think we even saw that last week against the Jets. And I think that especially helps them with like Amon-Ra St. Brown, because he's just, if you get him into a particularly favorable matchup, he's going to get open and Goff is going to find him. I think another thing that they do very well is they do a lot of reads where, say, Goff is starting on his right-hand side, everything from the other side of the formation is coming back into his vision when he moves. It's not like one side of the field is this concept and is all breaking this way, the other side is this. It's a lot of like everything is supposed to flow back into his vision. And I think it makes it a lot easier for him to read. Obviously, that does come with some drawbacks. If teams are playing like split coverage, or they might have numbers to one side, like, you can't get as many advantages on picking on the weak side because you're just having these concepts that are running away from it anyway. But I think generally it makes it easy for Goff, and they have a lot of guys who are pretty good at running away from coverage, truthfully. I think this offense really does a lot of things well. And I think, like I said, to his credit, Goff is not the second best quarterback in the NFL, but he's better than he was. And I think he's playing in a situation that is helping him, raise his ceiling a little bit.
By the way, 3 and outs, lowest in the league, 49ers, probably no surprise. Second lowest amount of 3 and outs, the Falcons, which I think is probably a mild surprise. So they run the ball and manage.
Arthur Smith, baby.
Yeah, and then number 3 is the Lions. So yeah, they are doing a very good job of managing that. Yes.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about this game is there's been a lot of talk about the Panthers' defense being hot. Like, I think Bill Simmons said on his podcast he expects the Panthers to win their division because their defense is hot. The Lions' defense is almost as hot as the Panthers' defense. Mm-hmm. The Panthers' defense has been 10th since week 10. The Lions' defense has been 14th since week 10. And if you ask me, what do I believe in more? What Goff has done over the entire year and what Sam Darnold has done in 2 out of 3 games, I think the clear answer is I believe in what Goff has done over the entire year.
I don't think the Panthers defense looked that hot against the Steelers last week.
No, Trubisky had a good game.
And they ran the ball well against them. And Chin was back, but Chin was looking tentative, I guess is the best way to describe it.
I think too, my thing with the Panthers defense in this game, like, their run defense has been nice, but I think they are very much a run defense that is like, they're going to go full steam ahead and they're going to pray to God they hit you in the backfield. And they do a lot of the times. Like Frankie Louvu, I think, has had a really good season. Shaq Thompson is generally good at that. They have fairly good defensive linemen. Like Brian Burns can like slip through and do stuff like that. If you can just outmuscle them, and there are not many offensive lines that can outmuscle you better than Detroit's, I think that's where they can falter a little bit. And so that's where I think Detroit kind of has the advantage here. It's like they're going to, I think, be able to outmuscle them a little bit, get Goff into some of the favorable down and distances that he wants to as a passer, and just kind of do what they want.
Yeah. The line is Lions minus 2.5.
Oh, I would take that.
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel very good about the Lions on that. And the over-under is 44. And here's an argument in favor of trying a first half under.
Ooh.
Both of these defenses are way worse in the second half of games. Carolina's defense goes from 7th in the first half to 31st in the second half. Detroit's goes from 12th to 28th. And these trends are true since week 10, since these defenses got better in the last few weeks. It's not that these are not first half of the year trends that aren't true anymore. These are trends that are still true. So the first half under might be an interesting play.
First half under sounds interesting, and if you don't hit it, you can turn around and maybe go over in the second half.
There you go.
Right. Very much a Christmas Eve. I don't have to. I'm not on deadline for the next day. Definitely the kind of play I'd be looking for.
All right, let's talk about the Fraud Bowl. The New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings.
Wrong.
Another 1 p.m. game. Vikings are basically in the playoffs at this point. Are they already in, or are they?
Yeah,
I think the Vikings are in.
They're in.
Yeah.
Giants 99% with a win, 81% with a loss. This is, of course, the game of the two teams that DVOA despises. The Giants are 22nd. The Vikings are 25th. Vikings 10-0 in one possession games. Giants 8-2-1 in one possession games, which, by the way, is why I am very big on the Giants +4 in this game, because I cannot imagine a game between these two teams being decided by more than 3 points.
The Giants are going to muck it up enough to make it a one-score game.
So here's some interesting splits. The Giants are the worst defense in the league against middle passes, especially the short middle. And Kirk Cousins is 5th in the league in DYAR on middle passes.
Yeah.
But the Vikings defense is much weaker against short passes, and only Matt Ryan this year throws short passes more often than Daniel Jones. So both passing games play into the weakness of the other pass defense.
The Vikings defense is soft. Like, they are just, both in terms of how they play their coverages and like how they tackle. Like, that team just does not. I think that's why they're so bad in the short area. I mean, part of it is they play a lot of these, like, they're going to play quarters and they're not going to play press. They're going to play it off. And that's just kind of what they do. It's kind of like what the Rams do. It allows for a lot of these underneath throws. And then I just don't think they have the dudes to tackle very well. Like, I don't think Eric Kendricks has quite played to his level.
They don't get as much pressure as you would think, too, right? Like, you hear a lot of Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith, and Zadarius Smith is having a comeback player of the year level year, but they're actually only 22nd in pressure rate on defense.
I think they get nothing from their interior in that regard, and then they just don't do a lot of the, for whatever we want to say about what Mike Zimmer was towards the end of his tenure there, that man was scheming up pressure on third down. They just don't have that level of, like, of being able to find the one thing in your pass protection scheme that is going to really, piss you off and get you sacked. They just don't really have that element to their game right now. So it's kind of just like you're banking on getting some edge pressure with Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter, but it's also like, if that's the only place that you're getting your pressure, it's really easy to kind of just chip, and then you have a clean middle of the pocket. You know what I mean?
Right. And yeah, it's those two guys. Go get them on your edge. Right. And the Giants kind of have an answer to that. They're good at the both tackle positions, and they'll play constricted formations and things like that. Get some tight ends involved. I'm wondering how they attack the soft middle of the field with the Giants playmakers, who consist of pretty much nobody right now.
Yeah, I watched the Washington Giants first game closely in preparation for last week's Washington Giants game, and like, one of the things I came away with is, I'm not Mr. Film Watcher, but Jalen Smith is just not the guy.
He cannot move.
Neither was Tay.
He was just away from the play a lot.
He's their best linebacker, and he can't run. And then their other guy is a 6th round rookie, Micah McFadden, who is like,
Yeah, they just waived Tay Crowder, who was originally starting for them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And like Micah McFadden, he'll come up and hit. He generally kind of knows what he's doing, but he can't really run either. Not very good in coverage. And even when he does come up to try to hit and like play blocks, he kind of has short arms, so he just gets eaten by a lot of the bigger and better offensive linemen. And the Vikings, surprisingly, like they kind of have some of those guys a little bit. Like Ed Ingram, if he gets on you, he's gonna crush you. And then
Right.
Darisaw, obviously, like
And
Darisaw
Darisaw's
might be the
healthy.
best tackle in the league right now, outside of Trent Williams.
Yeah, and Darisaw's healthy now, and that's going to
Mhm.
make a big difference. And is Tibbs going to line up on him? Because Tibbs is going to be on that edge.
Tibbs flip flops, so it kind of just depends.
Right. It's fun seeing him come around in the
Yeah.
second half of the year. That's been really fun to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said this on Twitter, but all that like Thibodeau doesn't care, it does his motor
Nonsense.
string up was all such nonsense.
Yeah, like it was so stupid because a lot of it too was at least my understanding was part of it was obviously some of just how he seemed to carry himself off field, like people just didn't like him.
Right.
But I saw even some people were saying like on scouting reports like, oh, against the run he just doesn't have a motor, and it's like you're watching a different Oregon player. Like I don't know what you're talking about. Like I think he had some issues against the run, but it wasn't a motor thing. It was just like sometimes he didn't see a puller fast enough.
I tell you every time, old SEC toaster head scouts
Mhm.
hate Oregon guys. They hate Pacific Northwest guys. As soon as they see the green helmet and they say, "Oh, they're up there. They're a bunch of damn hippies." They did it with Herbert. They did it with Armstead. They did it with Panay.
Yeah.
They did it with Tibbs. It is. I'm telling you, it is a bias, and it's all these Texas SEC guys. Like, nope, not all of them. They're all soft up there. Promise you. That's what's going on.
So, would either of you take Vikings -4?
I ain't betting on the Vikings.
The
It is in
only
Minnesota, so none of that weather
Actually-
is going to affect so much of the country this week.
Now that I'm thinking about it, the only reason I might is the Giants secondary is decimated. And
Yes.
Justin Jefferson is probably the best receiver in the league. And then even some of the other Vikings options are still pretty decent too. Like TJ Hawkinson, I think has been pretty
Thielen's
solid
still
since.
good.
Yeah. Thielen is still a plenty good player. Osborne is like pretty hit or miss, but like he has his games where he can run away from people. I just think that is probably if the Vikings can clear the 4, it's because their passing game just goes nuclear on a depleted secondary.
I'm still going to lead towards the Giants because I've seen Jefferson go nuclear, and it's still 3
And then
points.
it's still a close game. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to
I got
say,
4
I
points
feel
to
like this line is too big. I just feel like it should be Vikings by 2.5 or something.
Yeah.
And the odds of the Giants losing by 3 or 4 are pretty high. The over-under is 48, by the way. So
I don't know.
Our
It seems
system
like this
says
game
that's
gets
pretty
mucked
wide
up. I feel like this game gets mucked up if it's a Giants win. And then you come in at 24-21 or 23-22 or something, and you go under.
And you have a prop you wanted to talk about.
Let me find that prop right now. Justin Jefferson, 100+ receiving yards.
Yes.
I think we can just pencil that in now. And Saquon, 100+ rushing yards at +400.
That is the Giants take a lead early and ride with it scenario.
Right. Or you get a 60-yard run.
Yeah, or that. Which actually that is, I think, a more likely scenario is that he just has one that just does a lot of the work. Because I actually kind of think the Giants' run game has not been as good, I think, recently as it was to start the year. I think it really carried them at the beginning, and I think it has tapered off a little bit. And then I actually think since the Vikings have gotten Kiris Tonga, who had played for the Bears last year, he's kind of been decent for them in the middle, and I think that could cause some problems for the Giants. Not in the sense of like they're going to completely shut down Barkley, but maybe not as juicy a run defense to kill as it might have been a few.
And Todd Singer points out there is no precedent for the Vikings actually taking another team taking a big lead on the Vikings. Every Vikings game goes the same except for the last one. Almost every Vikings game this year was the Vikings take a lead, then the Vikings kind of suck, then the Vikings really suck in the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, the Vikings do something amazing and win by 3 points.
They go into Justin Jefferson save us mode.
The only thing that was different last week was that they didn't have the start. They
Right.
picked it up from the middle.
The beautiful opening drive. The beautiful Vikings opening drive.
I mean, here's DVOA. Vikings offense by quarter, 15, 15, 31, 14.
Jesus.
So like that third quarter, and by the way, the worst defense in the league in the third quarter is the Giants. So something's got to give.
Second half props are coming. Who's 32nd? You probably don't have it in front of you.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
The 32nd offense in the third
probably
quarter. It's probably like the Texans or something.
Yeah.
Some overall bad offense that's bad all the time. All right. Again, reminder, please bring in your comments, bring in your questions. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Twitch, we're here every Thursday at 1 p.m. previewing games.
I'd read.
I've got that for the end.
Oh, okay.
I've got that for the
Sorry, I
end.
didn't mean to.
All right.
Underdog Fantasy's awesome. Okay.
We got 3 more games, though. Let's briefly, Bengals at Patriots, as Sal Palantonio would say, the most important game of the week, because I'm going to be there. And I'll point out, by the way, the Patriots still, despite having the stupidest play in NFL history, don't drop too much in DVOA. They're still 12th in DVOA, but the Bengals are 7th, and the Bengals are just better. And as we keep saying, the Bengals are just better this year than they were last year on both offense and defense. The Patriots have a relative weakness versus passes in the middle of the field, and Joe Burrow is 4th in the league in DYAR on passes in the middle of the field, in part because, with Chase injured for a couple games, it's been more Higgins and Boyd and Hayden Hurst, and those guys are in the middle of the field more, whereas Chase is usually on the outside. So
I also think Burrow himself has actually just gotten a lot more willing to throw that part of the field. I think as a rookie, he just, he doesn't have the best arm. So I think he's a player that kind of has to understand things at a very, very high level and play with really great timing to make it work. And I think as a rookie, it just wasn't all the way there. I think this year he's really taken that step to where he knows where everything is supposed to be over the middle of the field. And he's been very, very confident throwing to Hurst. And like you said, Higgins, I think making some of those in-breaking routes, being a big body over the middle, like it's been a really nice thing to see from this offense.
Burrow really is the ultimate ceiling level of a intellectual quarterback.
Yes, absolutely.
People thought I was crazy this offseason when I would say things like the ultimate ceiling for Mac Jones would be to beat Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. But it was because if everything worked out for him, he would never have the arm to be Justin Herbert or Josh Allen.
Right.
But he could develop the intelligence to be Joe Burrow, right? Like what Joe Burrow is the ultimate, it's not arm strength, but it's just pre-snap reading and knowing where to go with the ball and being good after the snap and mobility. I mean, even though he takes too many sacks, which he doesn't take as many of as he did earlier in the year and last year, Burrow is just the ultimate of that type of quarterback.
Absolutely. And like I said, even like I just said, I think got better at understanding how to throw the middle of the field with his arm. I think he's even gotten better throwing some of the outbreaking stuff, because a lot of what they were doing last year on the sideline was like, well, Jamar Chase, run 50 yards and I'm going to chuck it up and you're going to go find it. They've actually, I think, done a little bit better about throwing some actual comebacks and back shoulders and outbreakers and stuff. And he's never going to be great at that. He's never going to be, like we said, a peak Tom Brady or like Justin Herbert. He doesn't have that kind of arm. But if he can do it enough to threaten, to threaten it and make you respect it, it opens up the rest of the offense. And if the rest of the offense is open up, he's plenty smart enough to just pick you apart for days.
Well, Olheady 403 says, I think the Bengals could go further than most people think this year.
Yes.
I could absolutely see the Bengals, as good as I think the Bills are, and as good as everybody else thinks the Chiefs are, and as good as we all know their offense is, I could absolutely see the Bengals coming out of the AFC again. I know our numbers are totally in love with the Ravens, but for most of the people in football, it's just a top 3. It's Bills, Chiefs, Bengals. And I think you could see any of those teams coming out of the AFC, and it would not be a surprise.
I almost think the only reason I would maybe lean the Bills over the Bengals is just if you get a 10 out of 10 Josh Allen game, I don't think Burrow quite has that. You know what I mean? Like a 10 out of 10 Josh Allen game is just a completely different a beast. But I think in terms of like full team top to bottom, the Bengals are a better team. They're a more complete team than the Buffalo Bills.
You really think so? Because I don't know.
Injuries, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of it. It's just understanding who's supposed to be healthy.
Still really good.
But the Bengals defense is pretty
really
good.
The Bengals have better receivers
and a better offensive line, I think.
But the Bills have a better defense.
With Vaughn out, with this nerfed version of Trey White, with the injury at safety, and just some of the other depletions along the way. I know a week or two ago, it's like the Bengals look stronger top to bottom. The Bengals had lost Hendrickson for a while, but it looks like he's coming back. And he's
going to play this week with a broken hand.
Yeah, that's insane.
Club. Yep. He's wearing the club. Unbelievable.
I think my argument for slightly leaning Bengals defense is that I think the Bills have a good defense, but they are very much we do what we do. You know what I mean? Like they're going to play nickel. They're going to play the same coverages all the time. They're just going to do what they do, and they're going to play it faster. I think when you're a little bit injured, that becomes hard. And then I think the Bengals are much more a defense where like they can kind of adapt to whatever kind of defense they're facing. You know what I mean? I think they're a very, very good matchup defense. I think that matters when you get to January. I think that, we saw it last year when they played the Chiefs.
Well,
they were the best
Pete
matchup.
Carroll. It's the classic Pete Carroll versus Bill Belichick, right? Pete Carroll
100%.
was, this is what we do, and we do it better than anyone else. Bill Belichick was, we do everything at a B-plus level. We pick the thing you can't deal with, and we do that.
100%.
I never thought 3 years ago that I'd hear Captain Lou Amorano compared to Bill Belichick. But he has been coaching lights out for the last year and a half. Quick note, people are talking about who can go where. AFC Conference Championship live odds right now. The Bills are plus 150, Chiefs are plus 260, and the Bengals are plus 500. So, I don't know. I'm not going to place a bet on there, but if you, Hetty, if you're interested in it, plus 500, that's pretty good meat on the bone.
I think
I will point out, but the Patriots still do have playoff chances if they can win this. 33% to make the playoffs if they win this. If they lose this, it's 5%. They're basically done.
Ooh. Do they want to make the playoffs, really?
Yes. It's better to be 9-8 and the 7th seed than to be 8-9 and still picking 19.
Yeah, I just feel like I worry if they make the playoffs, Bill is going to be like, we can build on this. But there's nothing to build on, buddy.
I can't see there being much difference in Belichick's mood, whether they make the playoffs at 9-8 or miss it at 8-9.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to do his thing.
I guess at this
they're
point,
still
he
stuck.
might just...
Like I said, they're still stuck in this middle ground where Belichick is too good a coach for them to rebuild. So they're going to go like 8-9 or 9-8 like every year until Belichick retires. And I don't see that whether they go 8-9 or 9-8 this year, I don't see that changing for next year. So as a Patriots fan, I'd rather at least get into the tournament.
If that's where you're at, then I guess see what happens.
I'd rather be like, okay, now we're going to have a year where we go 3-14 and we're going to draft a real quarterback and rebuild. But this team isn't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rooting for anything that eliminates the Browns.
The line is Bengals -3 on this. I would go Bengals -3.
Yeah, I think so.
Is this is in Foxborough?
This is in Foxborough, yes.
I'll still go Bengals -3. I probably won't actually play it though.
All right, let's talk about the Eagles at the Cowboys. Although everything has an asterisk on it now. This game has shockingly almost no leverage at all for either the playoffs or who makes the Super Bowl.
Right.
No matter what happens in this game, the Eagles are probably the 1 and the Cowboys are probably the 5, and Jalen Hurts will probably be back for the playoffs. So nothing that happens in this game really matters at all.
Isn't like the only way it matters is if Dallas wins out and the Philly loses everything like that, which is probably not going to happen.
Right. it's a win out, lose out situation. Philly's got the Giants again, I believe, in 2 weeks.
The Giants and the Saints. Don't you trust that Gardner Minshew can beat
He can,
the
yes.
Giants? I mean, I think
he
Gardner
at
Minshew
least wins one of those.
Dallas.
Yeah.
At home. It's not at home. It's in Dallas. But the other two games, I think he's got a shot to beat either the Saints or the Giants. Those games, I think, are at home.
Yeah.
The wisdom at the bar last Sunday before we knew Jalen Hurts was injured. So this is the Philly bar logic: is Philly fans don't want the Eagles to have like 3 weeks to rest because everyone's afraid that they'll be rusty. So they want to hey, going to Cowboys. Take a loss against the Cowboys. That will make the next game meaningful. Then you clinch the home field advantage in that one. Then you get a shorter rest along the way. That's the logic that was being passed around the bar. Now, how much of that was guys inoculating themselves against a possible loss to the Cowboys on Christmas Eve that they don't want to we don't want to process?
Right.
I don't know, but it kind of speaks to like where the timber is around here and just how strong this Eagles team is. So it's like, you take a game with Minshew or 2 games with Minshew. You're fine. You're fine.
I mean, I could go on and on about numbers here. It's the same defense. These are the 1 and 2 defenses in sacks and adjusted sack rate and ESPN's pass rush win rate.
And
So
the Eagles front has been
even
even better lately than they were, I think, at the start of the year. They were pretty good for most of the year. The past month, they have been a wrecking machine. They have just been torching every single offensive line that they play against.
The Eagles, you mean?
Yes, the Eagles. Yeah.
The Cowboys defense has actually only been 13th since week 10, so they're in a little bit of a dip. Whereas the Eagles defense has been 6th against the run in the last few weeks. So they've solved that problem.
It's almost if they signed lots of
signed 2 dudes and got another dude back from injury.
And got the first round pick healthy and brought him back. And that is it. Because then with those guys playing a lot of snaps, then okay, Hargraves is in on like the passing downs, or like Fletcher is only playing X number of snaps, so he doesn't look as washed as he did earlier in the season. And that's where you get these like 3rd and 8, like, okay, here comes absolute chaos.
Here comes Sweat and Reddick just screaming off the edge.
Screaming off the edge, and 2 guys collapse in the middle, so there's no place for you to run. And like last week against Fields had some of those amazing scrambles, but they're kind of mush rushing him. Now, granted, the Bears' offensive line is probably not, especially once Tevin got hurt, was not something to talk about. But like you're mush rushing, like you're trying not to get too far upfield so you don't get run across. And they're still just all 4 of them are just advancing into the face of Justin Fields.
So, all right, the line in this game is Cowboys by 5.
Always bet the backup quarterback in his first start, especially when he's playing with a stacked roster, and especially when you're getting 5 points. Eagles plus 5.
I think I actually kind of lean Eagles too. Like, I don't really care for Gardner Minshew, but like the Dallas secondary sucks right now. It's bad. I actually think Deron Bland from the nickel spot had some pretty decent moments last week. But Kelvin Joseph is not ready for the lights, man. He's just not ready for it. Yeah. So I think they're basically going to almost guarantee that one of AJ Brown or Devonta Smith is going to have a matchup against him on every single snap. I think Minshew is smart enough to find that. I think he can do that.
Dallas, by the way, Dallas is 30th against wide receiver 2s.
Oh my God!
And Devonta might be the second. He might be the best wide receiver 2 in the league.
Yeah, Bland's the kid who launched Christian Watson's career, more or less, right? A couple of weeks back, he was the guy who just got beat over and over again, the coming out party for Christian. Okay.
And Zay Jones just fucking. Oh, sorry. Zay Jones cooked him on a double move last week. He's just not ready to play. He's just not ready to play.
Big game for Quez Watkins, maybe.
I mean, at this point.
Big game for Quez.
There isn't depth for the Dallas secondary. Trevon Diggs is still good.
Yeah, he is still good. But even then, is he good enough to keep AJ Brown quiet? I don't know.
Right. Is he going to get 5 holding penalties on AJ if we just start yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let's do one Christmas game. There's one Christmas game that's kind of good, and that's Packers at Dolphins at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Dolphins make the playoffs 82% with a win, 63% with a loss. Packers 23% with a win, 2% with a loss.
Update us on the Dolphins, state of the Dolphins offense, if you would, Derek, because it's a mystery wrapped in a riddle.
I don't think it's as dire as it was 3 weeks ago. I actually think that they have at least tried to open up the offense a little bit to like I think and Nate Tice has pointed this out a bunch of times, like they kind of stopped just doing spamming RPOs every time. They've done a little bit more of like, you know what? We're just going to run the ball. And
Yeah.
it's really easy to run the ball against this Packers front who
Yeah.
has like one good player. Like Kenny Clark is pretty good. And I don't really think anybody else is doing a whole lot in run defense. So I think they're actually, if they just commit to like, we are going to run the ball, I think they can get that. And I think especially too, they can get the edge on this Packers defense. Like I think Rashawn Gary is not supposed to be playing. And like, even when he was, this Packers defense was not very good at defending runs that like went outside the tackle. Like they just kind of had struggled with that all season. And I think that's what the Dolphins kind of want to do if they can get their guys moving on the edge. And then I also think in the passing game, they have tried to do a little bit more of setting up easier throws for Tua to throw outside the numbers. Obviously, he's super comfortable just trying to throw those, those deep digs, glance routes, slants, all that stuff that's hitting over the middle of the field. But I think every defense at this point has gotten privy to like, we're just going to drop our linebackers very deep and we're going to play press with inside leverage so you can't throw those. And I think when teams first started doing that, especially the Chargers, I think really, really did that in the first half. Tua was not like he was just throwing those routes anyway, and they just weren't open. Like, but that's just what he was used to. I think even last week we a little bit saw like, okay, they can do some more stuff. I think they just didn't have a complete game to beat the Bills. But like I think we started to see their offense take some shape. So I doubt we're ever going to see them as good as they were for the first 10 weeks or whatever it was. But I think they'll probably be good enough to dismantle a pretty rough Packers defense.
Yeah, Gary, I believe, is still on IR.
Mm-hmm.
And I see no evidence he's coming off. They've gotten healthier some other places, but you're right. It's a very lean defensive front, especially if you consider Smith like an edge rusher and like playing off the ball. So yeah, it doesn't bode well if they decide to just hammer the ball.
I will note, by the way, the Packers' pass defense is 24th against deep passes, and they are the worst late and close defense in the league.
Weird. Okay.
Where is this game actually?
Late and close. This game is in Miami.
Okay, yeah, never mind. It's fine then. Because I was gonna say I don't know how much I trust Tua to throw deep in the cold.
Yeah.
But if it's not gonna be cold, it's perfectly fine.
You had those poor Dolphins went from San Francisco to
LA
to Buffalo, and you wanted to send them to Lambeau for the fourth consecutive. You are cruel.
So the line is Dolphins -4 with an over-under of 49.5.
I would take the over.
Taking the over?
I'm taking the over because I also think the Packers are probably going to be able to score against this Dolphins defense. I don't think their secondary is any good either.
I think that's too many points to lay on the Dolphins the way they're playing right now. I think I would lean towards the Packers and lean towards the Aaron Rodgers with a healthier receiving core than he's had in a while. And the experience in games like these and put all those things together and say, I would take points plus that and take the Packers.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Packers also. The Packers offenses, DVOA likes them a lot better than you would think. We have them 7th in offensive DVOA. Like the passing game is actually above average at this point after it's kind of come back the last couple of weeks. And their running game is really good. They're 3rd running and 14th passing.
Yeah, they're running early in the year. The running and quick game was working pretty well overall.
The Miami defense is better against the run than the pass, but the Green Bay running game has been better than the Miami defense has been running.
Yeah, and I think the Packers run game is so like diverse. Like they can just do so many different things with Jones and Dillon, even putting them in the backfield at the same time. That it's just kind of like the Dolphins do have some dudes up front. Like Christian Wilkins is playing out of his mind. Zach Sealer is one of the best run defenders. Landon Roberts is trying to kill somebody on every single snap. But I think they're going to be able to catch him enough times that they'll be able to keep Rodgers in some pretty comfortable down and distances.
All right, so that is our last game. Let's talk about our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Play on Underdog Fantasy with us and double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code OUTSIDERS. You can play Underdog's Battle Royale, which is a fast 6-round weekly fantasy football draft with easier chances to win than traditional DFS sites. And you can even win $50,000 if you grab first place. Or try Pick'em games where you can easily pick a player's chances to go higher or lower than projected stat lines, even in states where traditional prop betting currently isn't available. I'll bet you can find baseball best ball drafts on there too. Get into baseball season soon. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. Join the fun at underdogfantasy.com or download Underdog in your favorite app store, and don't forget to use promo code OUTSIDERS now to double your first deposit up to $100. Thank you, Derrik, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate hearing what you have to say. Mike, thank you, as always. Happy holidays to everybody, whatever holiday of choice you wish to celebrate, and we'll be back here. I'll be back Tuesday for the data show. No, there's no wrap-up show on Monday, but I'll be back Tuesday for the data show at 1 p.m., and we'll be back to preview Week 17 at this same time, Thursday at 1 p.m. next week. Until then, everybody, enjoy Week 16. So long.